A backhoe bucket sliced through buried fiber optic strands with a violent jerk. Glass shards and red laser lights sprayed into the sand. 8 glass fibers lay severed, their tips glowing crimson. The cable was transoceanic, and it was dead. Olivia Vance surveyed the trench from the boardwalk, coral pink blazer crisp against the sea mist. She smiled like an artist.
Finally, that ugly pipe is gone. The beach looks perfect.
Ma'am, that was a fiber optic line. There were warning flags. I think we just committed a felony.
Don't be dramatic. It was an old drainage conduit. The HOA authorized this cleanup.
She produced a signed work order and a cash envelope, thrusting both toward the nervous contractor.
Here is your payment. Now finish the landscaping and stop worrying.
Rick gunned the excavator and fled, not looking back. In 40 minutes, 4 counties would lose internet and 911. But Olivia only saw a clean resolution. Frank Delaney set down his coffee mug on the porch railing, eyes locked on the consortium tablet. A red alert pulsed. Fiber cut detected at easement 22B. Trans-Pacific link 7 severed.
My easement. Someone just killed the backbone of the coast.
He drove hard, dust kicking up from his Silverado, and found the trench on his easement, broken glass fibers glinting like tiny knives.
You cut a submarine fiber cable. Are you out of your mind?
It was an eyesore. The HOA voted to remove that ugly pipe.
You've just committed a federal felony. That cable feeds half the coast. Hospitals, 911, banks.
Olivia's phone suddenly displayed no signal. She shook it, face tightening. 3 miles inland, a 911 dispatcher grabbed her headset. Silence. The first emergency call failed. The blackout was rolling, and Olivia Vance still didn't understand what she'd done. Across the coast, 911 dispatch screens flickered twice, then went black. Emergency calls went unanswered. At St. Jude's Hospital, a surgeon stared at frozen vitals. The telemedicine link was gone. A nurse screamed for help. From Eureka to Monterey, ATM screens flashed, network unavailable. Bank lines stretched around blocks. By afternoon, FBI agents pulled up to Olivia Vance's gated mansion. Their badges caught the light.
This is absurd. I am the HOA aesthetics chair, not a criminal mastermind.
They held up a tablet showing the beach trench. The severed cable was unmistakable. In a windowless room, Rick Dalton sat trembling. An agent placed the work order on the table.
She told me it was a drain pipe. She signed it right in front of me.
The agent pointed to Olivia's signature. Elegant cursive, damning as a confession. 4 counties remained dark, and Olivia Vance woke in a federal holding cell, the weight of it finally hitting her. In his home office, Frank Delaney took a call from a consortium lawyer. The man's voice was clipped with urgency. The lawyer explained that a special clause in Frank's inheritance had activated. His late Uncle Will had prepared for this exact scenario. The trust instrument read, should the fiber link sustain catastrophic damage, all consortium holdings pass to Frank Delaney, sole heir.
Wait, you are telling me I now own the cable they just cut, the landing, the easement, the whole network?
The lawyer confirmed. Frank was now the sole owner of the Pacific Fiber Trust, a $50 million entity.
Uncle Bill, you planned this. You knew someone might try to tear it up.
Meanwhile, the FBI Cyber Division formally opened a sabotage investigation. Olivia Vance was the prime target. She was released on $500,000 bond. Her coral blazer rumpled, her expression hollow.
I was only doing my job. The beach needed that pipe gone.
Frank watched the darkened coastline through his window. The outage had made him the most powerful man on the coast. By dawn, news helicopters swarmed the coast, their cameras pointed at the severed cable like a wound. Inside the HOA Community Center, 300 residents packed the hall, faces twisted with rage.
You can't blame me. I followed the board's directive to beautify the beach.
The board chair called for a vote of censure, and the room erupted in a unanimous roar.
Let them tear each other apart. This is just the beginning.
In a high-rise office, consortium lawyers assembled the claim. Restoration, lost revenue, federal penalties, $186 million.
This is a witch hunt. When the truth comes out, you'll all regret this.
She stormed out, her blazer catching the door, a sliver of pink escaping the chaos, to the HOA and Olivia Vance. You are hereby notified of liability, totaling $186 million for infrastructure damage and economic loss. Frank set down his binoculars. The clock was ticking, and he held every key. Gas station pumps flickered offline across the coast. Drivers beat steering wheels in frustration. Banks saw runs, desperate customers demanding cash, security guards stepping in as tellers shut windows. The governor stood at a press podium, declaring a state of emergency for 4 counties. Coast Guard boats patrolled the shore. Frank's phone buzzed with an official restoration order from the Department of Homeland Security.
They need me, but I am not splicing a single fiber until they guarantee protection.
He met with the Coast Guard sector commander at the damaged site. 3 officers in crisp uniforms listening.
I'll restore it, but only with a permanent no trespass perimeter. The HOA signs or I don't splice.
In his workshop, Frank called a consortium. His voice brooked no argument.
Tell the HOA I'll fix their disaster, but they hand over a permanent easement and a buffer zone. No negotiation.
He hung up. The coast was burning, and Frank Delaney was the only firefighter. With a price. The HOA's insurance carrier sent a single-page letter, certified mail. The board opened it in silence, their faces draining of color.
Olivia snatched the letter, her voice cracking. Intentional acts exclusion. This damage is not covered.
The room went cold. Without insurance, the $186 million would bankrupt the HOA and every homeowner. That same afternoon, a process server handed Olivia a class action lawsuit, naming her personally for gross negligence and willful misconduct. Frank scrolled through dozens of emails at his workshop bench. Desperate, furious, pleading. Some begged him to save the coast.
They don't know I own the whole thing. They're asking the executioner for mercy.
He composed a 2-sentence reply. Accept my terms within 24 hours, or find another splicer. There is none. He addressed it to the HOA board, copied the governor's office, and hit send. By dusk, a crowd gathered at his chain-link fence, waving bank statements and tear-streaked letters. They were terrified.
24 hours. Tell your board.
Frank joined the virtual meeting in his workshop. Face calm. The HOA board's grid of anxious squares filled his screen.
This is blackmail. Delaney, you can't hold the whole coast hostage.
A board member cut across her, voice strained. Olivia, we don't have a choice. The governor's office is breathing down our necks. The board met in emergency session, seated around a polished table in a rented conference room. Frank's voice came through the speaker, flat and absolute. A permanent no trespass easement and a 50-foot buffer. You sign, I splice. One by one, the board members voted. 5 yeses, 1 wavering, but it was enough.
I refuse to participate in this farce. This is a surrender.
The board chair, a retired lawyer named Gunderson, stood. You are removed as aesthetics chair, effective immediately. Olivia's chair screeched as she stormed out, her heels echoing down the corridor like gunshots.
Step 1, done. Now the real work begins.
Frank had a pop-up shelter on the beach, fusion splicer and fiber coils arrayed under Coast Guard guard. News vans lined the access road, satellite dishes aimed at the sky, camera lenses trained on his every move. Frank ignored them, guiding a hair-thin glass fiber into the splicer's clamp. The first fusion arc took 40 minutes. A local reporter cornered a neighbor near the chain-link fence, voice recorder held aloft. The neighbor, a woman who'd known him for years, let slip that Frank's late uncle had been a wealthy cable magnate. The reporter's eyes widened. She began making calls to county records, the consortium, disgruntled HOA members. As dusk settled, Frank made the second splice, the tiny electric arc illuminating his weathered face.
The reporter will find out, but they won't find anything I am not ready to defend.
He sealed the splice case, and the green indicator light blinked steady. 2 strands down, 6 to go. In a news van, the reporter accessed the family trust filing. The name Frank Delaney matched the Pacific Fiber Trust owner. A breaking news alert flashed across every screen. Cable savior owns the cable. Frank Delaney inherits Pacific Fiber Trust.
See, I told you. He planned it all. This disaster was a setup. He owns the cable.
The HOA board chair called Frank immediately, voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal.
I didn't know until after the cut. My uncle's trust activated the minute those fibers snapped.
The board chair wasn't satisfied. You blackmailed us into signing away our beach, and you stood to profit.
I profited nothing yet. What I did was force you to protect the infrastructure you carelessly destroyed.
He's a profiteer, a wolf in sheep's clothing.
As Frank stepped away from the splice shelter, the same reporter thrust a microphone in his face. The reporter was blunt. Are you exploiting this disaster for personal gain?
I am fixing it. The rest is court business. Ask the HOA who cut the cable in the first place.
A banged-together picket line had formed at the beach access. A dozen residents waving Frank the Fraud signs. Frank kept his head down, toolcase heavy in his grip, and stepped past the Coast Guard checkpoint without a word. At his workshop that evening, he found a handwritten letter pushed under his door. Death threats. His hands shook for a full minute, then stopped. He placed the letter in a drawer and turned to his equipment.
They don't matter. The splice matters.
He worked through the night. The fusion splicer's arc his only light, splicing 2 more strands before dawn. By morning, Olivia's lawyer had filed a civil fraud suit, naming him personally. The news cycle gobbled it up. He set the tablet aside, picked up the splicer, and aligned the next fiber. 4 strands down, 4 to go. The police had advised him not to return home alone.
I'll finish this if it takes the last of me.
Frank sat on a crate in the splice tent, pulling an old photograph from his wallet. The photo showed his Uncle Bill on this very beach, pointing at the buried conduit. He closed his eyes, and the memory sharpened into wind, salt, and his uncle's voice.
If anyone ever damages this cable, only you will know how to fix it. You planned this, didn't you, old man? You prepared me for this exact moment.
He opened his eyes and tucked the photo back with careful precision. His hands, which had shaken for days, were suddenly steady. He picked up the splicer, aligned the next fiber under the scope. The arc flashed, the green indicator lit. Strand 5 complete. He turned to the remaining fibers, a man armored by legacy and duty, and continued his sacred task. In a federal courtroom, Olivia's motion for an emergency injunction to stop Frank's work was denied. National security, the judge cited. Immediately after, her own lawyer handed her a bill for $400,000.
This can't be right. I am the victim here.
That afternoon, she stood in a pawnbroker's shop, laying down her pearl necklace and diamond bracelet. The pawnbroker counted out $40,000, a fraction of what they were worth, but she took it. By week's end, a realtor's sign appeared on her front lawn. Pre-foreclosure, price reduced. Her husband, silent for months, finally packed a suitcase.
Where are you going? You can't leave me now.
He didn't look back. The front door closed like a cell gate. Olivia slumped against the marble counter, the silence of the house screaming. Frank gripped the rugged consortium tablet with calloused hands, watching the green verification bar climb. His beard had grown thick, his eyes sunk deep from weeks of labor, but his grip was rock steady. In St. Jude's ICU, a nurse paused as a steady beep echoed from the central station. The first telemetry reading since the blackout began. Downtown, the ATM line still snaked around the block, but the machine suddenly whirred to life and spat out crisp bills. A weary cheer rippled through the crowd. The consortium tablet flashed. Link verification in progress, 75%. Then a legal alert cut across the screen. Olivia Vance v. Pacific Fiber Trust. Emergency appeal filed. Frank stared at the alert, his jaw tight, then swiped it away with a calloused thumb.
Let her appeal. The splice comes first.
A nurse held a tablet steady as the trauma surgeon finally connected with a specialist in San Francisco via telemedicine, his relief visible even through a mask. Bank lines shortened, the panic slowly evaporating into a fragile, exhausted calm. The verification reached 98%. 1 strand remained. Frank pressed his palm flat on the workbench and stood. Frank guided the last glass fiber into the splice clamp under the microscope, his hands steady and deliberate. The fusion arc sparked once, and the consortium tablet locked at 100%, a message from the Network Operations Center. All trans-Pacific links verified. Service fully restored. He stood slowly, his knees popping after weeks of kneeling in sand, and pressed the red disconnect on the splicer. Then he dialed the HOA board on the tablet. When they answered, his voice was ice.
It's done. Per the agreement, your beach access ends at the new fence line.
This board chair started to thank him, but Frank cut the call with a swipe. Simultaneously, an alert reached Olivia's phone. Emergency appeal denied. All federal stays lifted. She dropped the phone on her empty condo counter. There were no more legal moves. Frank turned toward the sea. His work done. His uncle's words echoing in the salt air. The final hearing lasted 18 minutes. Olivia sat alone at the defendant's table, her coral blazer now a rumpled flag of surrender. The judge's voice landed like a gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff, Pacific Fiber Trust, in the amount of $186 million. Olivia's legal insurance refused to pay a dime. The intentional act exclusion was ironclad. Her house, her accounts, her future, forfeit. 2 days later, court officers posted a red eviction notice on her front door. She knelt in her once elegant living room, taping a single banker's box. The coral blazer hung over a chair, forgotten. She carried the box herself into a 600 square foot condo inland.
This is it. The view of a parking lot.
At his workshop, Frank Delaney read the judgment on his tablet. His face was unreadable, like the sea at night.
She'll appeal again. She'll lose again, and I'll keep fixing what she broke.
The $186 million had obliterated the HOA and the Vance name. All that remained was a chain-link fence, yet to be erected, and a man who held every key. Workers in high-vis vests drove the first post into Frank's easement. A tall chain-link fence snaked across the sand, each section bearing a red "No Trespassing" sign. HOA residents stood on their side, hands gripping their own fences. No one shouted. No one dared. Frank Delaney stepped to a podium in a rented auditorium, a giant check beside him. Cameras whirring.
This settlement will fund a local STEM scholarship and build a public beach access 2 miles south. It's what my uncle would have wanted.
A reporter called out from the crowd. "Is this guilt money, Mr. Delaney?"
It's legacy money, the kind that protects the coast long after I am gone.
The next morning, the new public access opened. A wooden walkway over the dunes. Families already streaming toward the waves. Back at the HOA beach, the fence gleamed in the sun. Residents stared through the chain link at a coastline they'd never walk again. Frank stood alone on his porch, the easement now a permanent scar and shield.
Uncle Bill, I hope this is what you meant.
Months later, Frank walked the no trespass perimeter alone. The chain link fence threw long shadows across the sand at sunset. His hand trailed along the mesh, each step a ritual. The coast was breathing again, but the scar remained. He stopped where the buried conduit ran and pulled the red marine-grade connector from his pocket.
Uncle, you never told me how heavy this would be.
He turned the connector in the fading light, the same one he'd held that first morning, a symbol of a fight only. He understood. Behind him, the public beach was alive with laughter. Families running where the HOA never could again.
They'll never thank me. That's not why I did it.
He pocketed the connector and walked on, the sunset painting the sea gold. He was no hero. He was the man who held every key, and that would have to be enough. The fence stood silent behind him, a permanent line between what was and what would always be. Frank parked his Silverado at the new public access, the wooden walkway already busy with families. A father hoisted a child onto his shoulders. He walked barefoot onto the sand, the salt air filling his lungs for the first time in months, without a tool in his hand. A girl built a sandcastle. Her father dug a moat. Frank smiled, a real one, unbidden.
Don't let the bastards take what's yours, Grandpa.
He drove the coast road home, the sea steady on his left, and pulled into his gravel drive. On his porch, coffee steaming, he watched the ocean from a different angle, his own.
I kept the note. I lived every word.
The morning light gilded the railing. He exhaled and closed his eyes. When he opened them, the sun was higher, the coffee cold, but he hadn't moved. For once, there was nothing to fix. And that was enough. Frank took the framed state citation from the mantel and hung it next to his uncle's photograph. The state seal caught the last light, a small, official validation next to the man who started it all. He stepped back, beer in hand, and settled into the old rocking chair on the porch. The ocean stretched before him, a darkening sheet of glass. He took a long pull from the bottle. The chill grounding him, no phone calls, no legal alerts, just the creak of the rocker and the hush of waves. Frank thought of his uncle's note, now tucked inside the ledger in his workshop.
It's done, old man.
He exhaled, a release that had been decades coming. The sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rust and gold. He didn't move. For the first time, there was nowhere else he needed to be. In a 600 square foot condo, Olivia Vance sat on a second-hand couch, the fabric smelling faintly of someone else's dog. The small television showed Frank Delaney at a podium, smiling for the press, his voice muffled through the tinny speaker.
They turned him into a hero, and I am the monster.
She pulled a piece of printer paper from a stack and uncapped a pen. She wrote, "Dear Attorney General," and stopped. The following words felt like ash in her throat. She stared at the unfinished sentence for 30 seconds, then crushed the paper in her fist. The ball bounced off the coffee table and rolled under the couch. She didn't pick it up. She walked to the window, the one facing a parking lot, and leaned her forehead against the cold glass.
No more appeals. No more courtrooms. Just this.
Outside, a security light buzzed. Inside, the silence settled around her like a coat she'd never chosen. Frank's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, shattering the morning quiet. He glanced at the screen. A legal notification. Olivia Vance had filed a notice of appeal.
Of course she has.
He exhaled, a faint smile creasing the corner of his mouth, and swiped the alert into nothing. He walked to his workshop and lifted the worn leather ledger from the shelf. The spine cracked as he opened it to the flyleaf, the ink still sharp after decades. "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." He closed the ledger, his thumb tracing the worn cover, and set it on the bench. Through the workshop window, the first stars were pricking the dark. Frank stood still for a long moment. Then he turned off the light.